Stephen, it's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today.
Well, thank you for having me, Joe. It's a pleasure and a privilege. Thank you.
Yes, sir, you bet. So I always begin my podcasts with the question about COVID, and it was such a big deal. It influenced so many levels of our lives. How did you get through that era, and how has it influenced the way that you do things today?
Yeah, it's a great question. Um, well, during COVID, I wasn't writing this book. I was speaking, and I still do, speaking about real estate investing and various other things. So it changed dramatically because there were no live events. So that just dropped down off a cliff.
Yeah.
But then we started doing what we're doing now, which is virtual events, right? And the company that I consult with and speak for, they were one of the fastest ones to make that change. But what that also meant was I wasn't traveling to venues like we were doing events in hotels every weekend. So now I was traveling to our head office, which is in Idaho of all places. So I had to travel to Idaho and do it out of a studio.
Yeah.
And actually speaking in front of a camera to no audience is very different than speaking in a ballroom to an audience. So
Yeah.
I had to learn how to change the way I communicated um, and get used to looking at a camera rather than in people's faces. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was a big change. And of course, it's continued to this day. I mean, everything has gone virtual now. There are some live events starting to happen again, but it's still, to a large part, people are like, why do I want to travel to an event? Why do I want to go somewhere when I could be at home? I can watch it on my computer, and I can turn it off whenever I don't want to watch anymore. And I can also watch it in my pajamas if I want to. So
Yeah.
I think obviously virtual is here to stay. That's for sure. Live streaming, yeah.
Quite a journey from Florida to Idaho.
It's not easy, let me tell you. It's probably harder than doing the event. It's getting easier now, Joe, to be honest. But when I first started going there, it was at least two or three flights to get there and two or three
Wow.
flights home. I could have got to Europe faster.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting, coming from jazz radio, when music started back up, there is still that magic with the human element when everybody gets in a room, you know? I
Oh, I
mean,
agree. Yeah.
I mean, it's that whole idea during the pandemic where even though people weren't working, if they put on their clothes like they were going to work, it was a huge mental shift that went into it. And I think
Yeah.
that would have to play into humans getting into a room together.
It's definitely better for everybody. It's
Yeah.
better for the audience as well because they've got other people that are there, the energy that you feed off, and also the fact that then you are going to be disciplined and you are going to listen and you are going to be focused. So, my mind is open about it. The company that I consult with and speak for, they're not looking forward to doing live events again because it's very expensive.
Yeah.
You got to pay for all the travel, for all the hotels, for the ballroom. Um, and we don't see a huge demand for it yet. We actually do live events in that people can fly out to our head office, and we do have a room there that people can attend. Um, but I do think there'll be a swing back
Yeah.
at some point. People are going to get excited about going to a live event again,
Yeah.
as opposed to, oh, I don't want to go there. I think it'll change. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah.
For sure. So let's get into what you do on a daily basis for a living. Kids always get the truth out of us. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of kids. It's career day. Kid in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you
Yeah.
answer?
Well, I do a lot of things for a living. So I'm an author, obviously,
Yeah.
here to talk about this book. I'm also a speaker. So I speak about real estate and investing, and I also have mind, body, spirit events, personal development events that I do as well. Um, and so that's what I do primarily. But obviously, that entails a lot more than just being an author or just being a speaker. There's a lot of things that go on behind that. So I have three assistants that I work with. I get up very early because they're in the Philippines, right?
Yeah.
So I wake up probably 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I work on my book with my assistants. And then usually around this time, I'm focusing on my other business, which is consulting for investors, being a coach, and preparing for my speaking events. And then I go to bed early. I have to go to
Yeah.
bed early, obviously. I'm not going to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, right?
Yeah.
So I go to bed early. And I like that. I kind of like the lifestyle, to be honest with you. It fits me very well.
So what did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your dream job?
I wanted to be a soccer player, or as we
Okay.
call it in England, a football player. That was my
Yeah.
dream. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm a big Manchester United fan. I play soccer, all as much time as I could. So at school, during the breaks, I played soccer. During lunchtime, played soccer. Went home, played soccer. So that was all that was the focus of my life. I played, I was pretty good. I mean, I played for the school team and played for the county. But that's, I was never going to be a professional player. I had to realize that in the end. Um, but I enjoyed it and I still dreamed about it.
You know, Kansas City's considered one of the soccer capitals of the world. I mean, we have, and which a lot of people wouldn't realize, we're going to get the World Cup. You know, we have the first professional women's soccer stadium. So there's a lot going on soccer wise here in Kansas City.
I didn't know it was the first women's soccer stadium. That's fantastic. And I love the fact that it's a soccer city. I think it's going to keep growing exponentially.
Yeah,
Obviously, the World Cup being here again is
yeah.
huge, right? And the difference between what it was when the World Cup came here the first time and what it is now is just massive, you know.
I
So,
just,
mhm.
yeah. Well, I just don't know what Kansas City's going to do. We're just not a big, huge metropolis. I can't even imagine what the influx of people here is going to be like.
Yeah, well, I mean, Kansas has been a well-kept secret for a long time, right? It's
Yeah,
a great city. I mean, it's just wonderful.
yeah.
So, yeah, you just hope it doesn't get overrun and they lose the essence of what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Steven Spielberg has a big film coming out this summer, big blockbuster that's an alien film. And I just watched the trailer yesterday and it's based in Kansas City. So it's like there's all of these things
Yeah,
that are
yeah.
going on. So it's wild.
Well, with the Chiefs, of course, so they're not doing that well this year, but I mean, they've
Yeah,
been to Super Bowl so many times
yeah,
with Travis Kelsey and what's going on with him and his superstar wife is well, to be wife. Yeah, I mean, it's a huge focus there right now.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's under the radar. So let me ask you this. Talk to me a little bit about the elements that were planted into you early on that turned into spirituality, counseling, speaking, being an author. How did all of these things get harvested and become your career today?
Great question. Well, I was born on the 10th. I'm just kidding. So initially, as a kid, I can't say that I had interest in any of those things really.
Yeah,
Um, I think I think part of my mom always used to say, what did she say? She said, what was I can't remember what she said, but I used to help people out. Like my next door neighbor was an elderly lady, and she was on her own. And every year in England, we don't have Thanksgiving, but we have something called the Harvest Festival where in school you make all these baskets of fruits and vegetables and stuff like that, and you can take them to anybody you want to give them to.
yeah,
And so I remember taking this to my next door neighbor, and she was like just so pleased, not even for the fruits and vegetables, that someone thought about her, right?
yeah,
And so that really hit me. I went, wow, there are people out there that really do want people to knock on their door, say hello, give them something, because I was always very careful not to disturb her. We used to play soccer or football in the back garden, and the ball was always going over the fence. And I would never knock on her door. I'd just climb over the fence and try and creep in there and get the ball, not to bother her, right? So that was a shift for me. I remember that when I was a kid. And my mother said something, I don't know what it was exactly. I don't know if she said it about spirituality, but maybe it was about being a priest or something, or just being a good person, you
yeah,
know? And that stuck with me as well, because obviously you want to live up to what your mom wants, right? So I think that was part of it. I went through a lot of difficult times, right? So I even write about in the book, I ended up being diagnosed as a manic depressive, which is now called bipolar. And I went through the trauma of that, having the highs and the lows, and living through those things. So those things gave me, I think, a deeper compassion, an understanding of human nature. My father was very controlling, as was my mother. So I was always in favor of the underdog. I always looked to the underdog and support the underdog as well. I think that was part of it. And then I had my own businesses, which I wasn't very good at. I'd start a business and fail and start a business and fail. And then I was going through a shift in my life, going through a divorce. And a friend of mine called me and said she was going to go and see Tony Robbins at an event in Tampa, right? Because that's where I was living at the time.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, I've seen him. He's on TV, right?" She said, "Yeah, she said, one of my boyfriends actually works for him. He goes on and speaks for him." I said, "Oh, well, can I come?" She said, "Yeah." So I go and see Tony Robbins speak, and I'm looking him up on stage, and he goes, "I want to do that. I
Yeah.
want to do that," right? Which
Yeah.
probably everybody does, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I was really serious, and I set about finding out how you could become a speaker that went. You used to go around the country and do like 1 hour presentations and enroll people to go see him live, right?
Yeah.
And so I found out how that worked and how you got an opportunity, and I said about it. And you could write a book about that whole thing. It's hilarious, right?
Yeah.
Everything went wrong that could go wrong, but I found a way. I found a way. And the next thing I'm meeting him and going out and doing that. So
Wow.
it wasn't like it's been something I wanted to do when I was a kid, but I knew when I saw him, I want to do that.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Who has been that inspirational force in your life? Because you've gone through these different levels of growth and evolution. Who has been that guiding light for you?
Well, I think Tony was huge,
Yeah.
obviously. I went to work with him for 3 years, and that was the most transformational 3 years of my life. Just like you see him on TV or wherever, he's incredibly intense, right? And I would say now, because he's done all the things he teaches and conditioned himself, that he is superhuman. I mean, he really is, right? He's just incredible what he can do and how he does what he does. So that was very transformational for me. He was the biggest influence. My mom also is my hero, right? So she was a huge influence on me. She raised me. My father was away a lot he was a salesman. He had a company and he was a salesman for the company. So he was traveling all the time. So it was really my mom and Tony Robbins, I would say, that were the big influence, most
Yeah.
profound influence. Yeah.
Sometimes with people that have big personalities like Tony, you're not quite sure what it's going to be like in the flesh. Is it even more magnanimous when you get around him?
He's just a guy. I mean, he was just a real guy.
Yeah.
Had all the kind of frailties and foibles that we all have. Um, but he was incredibly intense, passionate about what he was doing. And if someone says, is he the real deal? I would say, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
What you see is what you get.
In this whole cancel culture environment that we live in, and I think about all of these figures, I remember when I was a kid, he had the infomercials where he would mail tapes to people. He's been
Yep.
around forever.
Yeah.
And he's literally been untainted by any of it. He is what he is. It's totally impressive. I mean, everything that he was doing in the beginning has only gotten stronger and his wield of influence. And it's so good because there's been so many people that have been bowled over by so many bad things that we've discovered. But he's been the guy.
Totally. And he's been through so much that people would never know,
Yeah.
would never realize. With his health,
Yeah.
in terms of things that happened to his company, to people that attended some of his events sometimes, but he just knew he was absolutely, without doubt, he knew he could find a way through anything. He just knew, well, not just knew, but he'd been through it, so he knew he could find a way to get through whatever came at him.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. As an author, before we get into the Venus flytrap, I want to know what were the books early on? What was a book? Who was an author? What influenced the way that you approached your writing?
Yeah, good question. So obviously Tony, I think then Neil Donald Walsh was a big influence on me with the Conversations with God series. From a spiritual perspective, I got a lot of understanding out of that. Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer. This is going back a ways, but people will be saying, "Who the hell are those guys?" Right? But yeah, so initially those guys inspired me. Tony is about personal development, but behind all that are spiritual values and things that are written about in the Bible or whatever. He's just put a spin on it. But the more spiritual teachings that I was more drawn to were from people like I just mentioned, Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, um, uh, and others like that most people will still will not remember today. But that's who the big people were back then that inspired me. Yeah.
So, the one thing about spirituality is, and we in Missouri, we're in the show me state. People want levels of empirical data. Have you had a spiritual experience that confirmed to you that without a doubt there is a higher order, there is a spirituality that exists in this universe?
Yes, many.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Let's get into the book.
Mhm.
The Venus flytrap, sex lies, and repercussions. What made you write this book? What was this journey like to actually go from the idea to it getting delivered to your house in pulp?
Yeah. That's a great way of putting it. Delivered to your house in pulp. I'll have to remember that. That's a great way to say it. Okay, so I'd written books before on
Yeah,
personal development and spiritual development, but that was a long time ago. And when I wrote those books, Joe, to be honest with you, I wrote them not because I wanted to sell a lot of books, because you don't get rich selling books. I
yeah,
knew that, right?
yeah,
I did it because as a speaker, it gives you more credibility if you're an author of a book. You know that too, right? So I wasn't really interested in selling a lot of books. With this particular book, I really wanted to get this message out to the world. Here's the deal. I had this experience, which is not something that you would think would happen to someone who has all this personal development experience, spiritual development experience, and has been teaching it. It's the opposite of that, right? So, which makes it funny, right? Because, um, and I tell people this in the book, this is my background, but you'd never believe it reading the book because all that went out the window when I met this woman. And rather than me bringing her to the light side, she totally took me to the dark side, which was good though. In the end, I realized this because it made me or caused me to have to face my dark side, right?
yeah,
All my frailties, all my fears, all my doubts, all my shame, all these things that suddenly came out because of this. And as a someone who's also got spiritual beliefs, nothing happens by accident, and we create it all. And it doesn't happen to us, it happens for us, which is not an easy belief to adhere to when it's actually happening, what you think is to you, but for you. So she was a master teacher for me, and she helped me create a freedom I'd never had before. Because, and I believe that a lot of people have this same experience, maybe not as exaggerated as me. I'm going up on stage and teaching all these amazing, profound principles and trying to adhere to them myself, which is impossible. You can't live up to all that, right? And so you feel like, well, I did, shouldn't say what anybody else feels like. I felt like if anybody found out how I really am, they'd never listen to anything I say.
yeah,
And very often what I found through, because I have a PhD in spiritual counseling, is that many people feel the same way in a different way. They feel like, I don't want my partner to ever really know all this, and this about me, because if they did, they might not love me anymore, right? And so what they think are walls to protect themselves become walls that imprison them and to live in fear because you never know when that could come out, right?
yeah,
And what are they going to do at that time when they find out? So what happened for me is by bearing my soul and putting all this into a book, it gave me a freedom I'd never had before.
yeah,
Because I got I got nothing to hide now. If you're
yeah,
going to read all this here, you now know that I'm a
yeah,
loser or I'm just as messed up as anybody else, right?
yeah,
So it gave me that freedom to be able to share it. But it wasn't easy because you've got to just say, hey, this is me. This is who I am. I'm just as screwed up as anybody else, and be able to laugh at it.
yeah. The one thing about what you do is there's a lot that's going on and it requires a high level of energy. How do you parlay that out? When that alarm clock goes off in the morning, what makes you put all of this energy into doing things in a very effective way and taking care of your own soul and yourself?
Yeah, wow, really good question. Yeah, I actually don't have an alarm except the one in my head,
Yeah,
so I just wake up because I'm excited about the day.
yeah,
Right? I'm excited about the day to get to be able to do what I want to do is amazing. So I guess the answer to the question is I'm very passionate about what I do. I'm very passionate about the message that this book could bring to people. I'm very passionate about the message that I can bring. So it doesn't feel like work. Does that make sense? It just feels like this is what I'm here to do, and I want to put my energy into it now. But also the other side of that is I do a lot to make sure I have that energy. I work out, I eat healthy, I drink, good protein and vegetable and fruit shakes, all those kind of things, vitamins, supplements, all those kind of things to be able to get the best out of my body.
So let's say you ran into that young version of you from England and you had a book in your hands and it was a big coffee table book and you handed it over and said, "This is how your life has turned out so far." Would that young version of you believe that all of this happened?
No,
Yeah.
no.
Would you give any advice to that young version of you?
Well, here's the thing. This is the way I look at it, right? Just like I went through this experience in the book, which I tell people at the beginning of the book, I talk to the readers like they're in the room, right? So I'm talking to the reader all the time. Listen, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, there is no way that happened. That cannot be true. Nobody could be that crazy. Well, it is true. It did happen, and I was that crazy, right? So, and then people will, as they read the book, they're thinking to themselves, I would never put up with that. I would have been out of there. And
Yeah.
maybe they would. Maybe they would. And so I also then say to them in the book, well, listen, if I had broken up with them, then you wouldn't be reading this and having such a good time, would you? Right?
Yeah.
So part of it is saying, look, when we're going through some of this stuff, it's good. We as outsiders very often want to help that person say, listen, man, you shouldn't even be in the same state as this woman. You got to get out of there, thinking that they're helping us, but they're really not.
Yeah.
Because if you don't go through it, you're only going to meet somebody else just the same in a different body and go through it again.
Yeah.
So I know that I had to go through it. It was something that I needed to go through for myself to realize these things about myself, and that sometimes helping people is hindering them. You know, I think what's good is to see what people are going through, love them through it. You know, there's nothing wrong with sharing what you think, right? You listen, I don't think this is going to work out well. I don't think
Yeah.
this is going to end well. But then letting them decide and just being there for them at the end of it, right? No
Yeah.
matter what happens.
So the thing about being alive on this planet and pushing forward and evolving is that there's these weird U-turns. There's these levels of serendipity. What was the biggest surprise in your life that you didn't orchestrate, that you got involved with, that's turned into such a fruitful, like, abundance for you in your existence?
Yeah. Well, probably at the core, at a deep spiritual level, I think you probably believe this too. We create it all anyway, whether we
Yeah.
realize it consciously or not. We
Right.
are creating it all, right? But what was the big? I mean, this whole thing was one of the biggest surprises of my life. Let me tell you, on a many levels. I think coming to own the fact that we manifest things was very difficult because it's just such so far out there. It sounds so hokey and spooky and Um, for instance, deciding I wanted to go work with Tony Robbins and it happening.
Yeah.
Deciding that I wanted to um, you know meet Phil Collins, these kind of things that actually happened
Yeah.
miraculously, right?
Yeah.
The fact that I wanted to have this particular home that I had this experience in with this woman, it was so far out of reach for me, but I somehow it happened, right? I just really was focused on manifesting certain things and they happened. And so what I've realized is that we can manifest anything if we desire it enough. And that
Yes.
might be good or bad, right? Depending on
Right.
where you put your focus, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's become one of the biggest, even though I talked about it for a long time, actually experiencing it is like, whoa, this can really happen,
Yeah.
like writing this book and doing these kind of things, and being on your podcast and doing all these things a long time ago, not that long ago, would have seemed like, you crazy? How's that going to happen? Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was afraid, I mean, I was afraid of writing the book. You go, well, haven't you done with fear? Have you not, studied fear? Well, yeah, but it never goes away,
Yeah.
right? And if you're not challenging yourself, you're not alive. You're
Yeah.
just not alive.
Totally. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, everyone that gets your book, everyone that sees you speak, everyone in your world, but you run the show. What is your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Yeah, well, everybody has a different perception, obviously. Like they say, you can never be a prophet in your own land, right?
Yeah.
So even though I've written all these books, none of my family have ever read them, and they don't care, right? Which is fine because it keeps you grounded, right?
Yeah.
So, but to answer your question, which I'm stalling, the answer to your question, which is how do I perceive myself? Complicated. Like I just said, there's a good side to my nature, then there's a dark side to my nature, and by being able to embrace them both, I can see them better now. I can see if I lose my temper over something and go, whoa, it doesn't matter what just happened. Why are you angry? Where's that coming from? You know,
Yeah.
but I can be all those things. I can be all those things and be okay with it and learn from it. And I think part of getting better and improving in your life is to take accountability and responsibility for your life the way it is. However much we think, well, this person did this to me. Or I could say, well, because of COVID, I couldn't go out and speak at live events anymore. It cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars and I'm a victim. Instead of saying, well, look at my life now, it's changed.
Yeah.
So many new things I'm able to do as a result of it.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't have as much money, but maybe I also don't have as big of a nut to crack every month, right?
Yeah.
And stress about to have to make.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to pick up the Venus Flytrap, they want to see you speak, they want to reach out, any of the good business, where's the best place to go?
Just to the website, go to vft23.com.
Okay.
Everything is on there. We do all kinds of special things, and there's a lot of more information about me and why I wrote the book and other stuff like that, as well as information about the book. And if people feel like they want to participate, we have a newsletter. You can join the newsletter if you want to buy the book, whatever you would like to do. However, we'd like to participate and be connected.
I love it. I will put all these links in the show notes. Stephen, this has been wonderful. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your passion. Have a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.